Welcome to the Digital Insight Podcast, where today I'm delighted to be joined by Dr Elouise Epstein, partner at Kearney, and Lance Younger, CEO and founder of ProcureTech. Our discussion today focuses around the continued evolution of digital procurement, and we ask, are we witnessing the most significant moment in the future of procurement? Obviously, sort of our topic of discussion today then is a topic that's been explored by many right now, but it shows that it's very important. It's very sort of a key trend for many is this idea of where we are in terms of digital procurement and the digital procurement landscape. So I suppose we'll jump straight in then as we speak today. Then in 2021, talking about digital procurement, whether it's digital transformation, whether it's about procurement technologies. These aren't new topics. These aren't something that suddenly happened overnight. These have been discussed for well over a decade. However, perhaps in recent years they've come to the fore much more. They've become sort of number one priority for procurement leaders and business leaders. Try and sort of best up then, as best as best as possible, kind of where we are right now in terms of what procurement and what digital procurement can do in terms of the sort of the critical business challenges that it can solve, in terms of essentially what can digital procurement do now to solve business challenges more than it could have done in previous years.
I'll just jump in on this one because this is my favorite topic. In fact, my new book is coming out is exactly about this topic. We have our procurement technology has failed to deliver against expectations. And even if it had delivered, it's still very immature in its development. So you can put in end-to-end procurement technology and be 100% mature, and you're 100% mature on what is in essence 1990s technology or 2000, early 2000s technology. And what's different now is we're in this digital age, and all of a sudden we have Amazon, we have iOS devices, we have AI, quote unquote, I'll keep that broadly defined. We have cryptocurrency, we have massive technological innovation, and there's a huge disconnect between what our systems do and what is out in the zeitgeist. And the other thing that I would say is that and this is an overused cliche, so I apologize for using it, but I go to Amazon and I can buy 15 things I didn't know I needed in 3 minutes or less, or I have one click, 1 hour delivery, all these innovations, and then yet I go into the corporate environment and it's just a disaster. And so I think that gets back to my point about 1990s technology. We have this old mindset. And so where we sit today is an evolution, or even revolution, if you will, because we can't keep doing what we've been doing. And so we need a point of departure. And what you've seen is Silicon Valley venture capitalists respond to that. And I'll pass this over to Lance, because this is exactly where we intersect. Is you have this immature technology, and at the same time, you have a lot of people that have realized there's a better way, and they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, I'd sort of accentuate that and just echo that, in that we're at a kind of a unique point in procurement's evolution. I think we probably hit it a couple of years ago in reality at the start of the decade, where there's an opportunity for procurement to take advantage of the demand, so new challenges, but also the supply, where you've got new solutions in the market. And that is all fueled by venture capitalists, but also by, I think, a new breed of leaders that are looking to lead digital first as well. and I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go through. But if you can get that alignment right between the leadership and the ambition, the coalition and bringing together of capital and investment with the right solutions in the right environment, then it'll be like there'll be a fire in a positive way.
Yeah.
Um,
And Lance, you said then that we've reached a kind of a critical point in procurement's evolution. Ignoring the digital side of it for 1 second, you said perhaps that was a couple of years ago where we sort of reached this real peak moment of the true evolution of procurement, where it's changing as a function. Broadly speaking, and again, not to ignore the technology side of it, but just looking at that evolution journey then, before we focus a little bit more on the sort of bit more digital landscape side of it, where are we now? So, if it's reached its sort of peak then, and looking at the last year, where we've obviously witnessed a very difficult moment that no one could have predicted, that has changed and almost ripped apart rule books, as it were, for many. Looking just at that evolution of procurement, what has that done for that conversation? What has COVID done to kind of, if it was flattening out in terms of procurement had hit a peak, has it pushed it further? Has it pushed it back? Just give me, as best as possible, a bit of an idea as to what this last 12 months has done, just for purely procurement's sake, regardless of the technology side of it.
Yeah, I think there's a real danger at the minute because what's actually happened, whether it's COVID or the change in agenda towards sustainability, is there's a danger that the leaders continue to lead and they leave an even bigger gap between themselves and the rest. I mean, it's been statistically proven over and over again, when you invest in digital or you invest in people, that you will get greater shareholder return. And I think, again, now we're going to see that accentuated where not, if you take sustainability as an example, many people are just looking to fix existing processes, as opposed to evolving them, or indeed bringing into place new digital solutions to address sustainability issues. And that is like a microcosm of everything that's going on in procurement, where there's an opportunity for procurement to introduce new solutions and new processes rather than just trying to fix existing or plugging small gaps that exist at the minute. So there's a significant opportunity for procurement now.
And Elouise, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I would add that we have a new generation of CPOs stepping into the fold now, and I think they're seeing that what Lance talked about, and they're building their careers on the mistakes of those that came before them, and they're not afraid to. I see this in digital because that's where I mostly play. They're not going to make the same mistakes, and when they look at sustainability as an example, they're not going to just, exactly like Lance said, not going to fix what it is. They're going to reimagine the process because it's their turn to put their stamp on the way procurement operates. And we all talk to a lot of CPOs, and that's the one thing that that really stands out for me is this unwillingness to keep perpetuating the failures of the past.
And
I think the other thing that's happening as well is we're seeing again, it's partly to do with the maturity of procurements, where some functions and some areas of procurement have grown to a stage where it's good enough. You know what I mean? They've got good core processes, they've got a good team in place, they've got the basic technology in place, and it's good enough. It's fit for purpose. And then you've got others that are saying, actually, we're I don't know, we're a Nike or we're a McDonald's or we're a Microsoft, and the thing that really matters to us is innovation or cost effectiveness or social responsibility, and they're starting to take a stage further. Now, part of that is the obvious, which is raising the agenda around, say, innovation and digital innovation and access to innovation. But part of it as well is how it ripples into how they structure the organization, which categories they look at, where they look to extend procurement's enterprise role. You've seen this in the past with people like HSBC and basically using an organization like Tradeshift, but also investing in them. They're an investor in them, not for their procurement capability, but because they could then offer a trade financing solution to their corporate clients. And so you see there's a natural evolution of the kind of the USP that procurement provides with regards to commerce and entrepreneurs and across the whole area. Same thing happens as happened at DHL. How they've pushed through the logistics supply chain and the suppliers and the digitalization within there as well. Same thing with Panasonic's acquisition of Blue Yonder a couple of days ago. Why have they done that? They've done that to go beyond.
So do you think it's fair to say then that I'm not going to say that perhaps more than ever before, because obviously there have been moments in history where huge changes have happened, but right now, on the back of the last year, but also on the back of the last 5 years in terms of this digital evolution of procurement, that this moment in time represents probably one of the biggest opportunities for procurement to really, progress beyond what people ever thought it could have done. Even the biggest believers in procurement, who have been sort of singing its praises for years, who've always known it's more to a business, perhaps now they've sort of open their eyes to say, well, this is a moment that we need to seize more than any other time, in procurement's history, as it were.
I 100% believe that this is like I frequently say now is the greatest time to be in procurement, and because we're at this intersection of a new generation, digital tools, macro disruptions, new leadership, on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of other variables, and I think it's a great time. And also, that's the positive view. The negative view is there's a burning platform, because the organization that Lance described that has all their processes buttoned up and it's fit for purpose, that's going to get automated. So if you're a procurement group and that's your reason for existence, over time, and I'm not saying today, but over time, that's going to get eaten away, and it's going to be a shrinking ice cube. But the flip side of that, and that's happening to other corporate functions, and for procurement, what I think is great is we can flip, because the future of all enterprises is really about third-party engagement. If you think about what procurement's good at, what our reason for existence should be, it's third-party orchestration, management, excellence in that. And so I think now is that time, without a doubt. And there have been other times, but if you have been waiting for, and a lot of us who've been around a long time have been waiting for that moment, this is our moment. There's no doubt.
Mm. Mm. I think as well, because if you think about it in the terms of the decade, there's a lot of reasons to believe we should be doing a lot of stuff more differently during this decade, and as a trend, as a period of time, we've gone through them in the past. We've gone from 90s, where it was all about price, to into the new century, when it was about cost. And then we've moved into risk, and then innovation and sustainability, all centered around the supplier view. But I think it's all coming to a head for procurement, in a good way. In a good way, we just need to kind of find the right ambition as individual organizations and the right base to run from. I don't think it's going to be easy, by the way, because I think for some organizations they're set up for this success, but others are going to find it difficult, not just because of where they've come from, but because of this transition out of COVID. You know, I don't think we can understate the what it's going to take for us to be able to re-engage with employees, re-engage with suppliers, and then very, very quickly start to kind of almost shift through the gears in a different way. We've put a lot of good things in place through COVID, but I still think there's going to be a heavy workloads to lift during the course of the remainder of this year, at least.
And if I can make one more add, is that we have over the last, those decades that that Lance has talked about, we have been order takers. We have been, uh, in support of the business. I think coming out of COVID, we are part of the business. We are no longer, we don't have to ask for our seat at the table. We're part of the table. We are the business, because you can't conduct business in the 21st century, but more specifically in the post-COVID world, to Lance's point, you can't conduct business that way without being at the table. And if your organization is set up where procurement, the business decides what they want, tosses it over the wall, like that's not tenable in this new the new globalized world that is full of disruptions. That's not going to work.
So we know that procurement has changed then, and we know that businesses have changed in terms of the way they recognize procurement and, like you say, the role it has. How it's not just another seat at the table; it's practically the table itself. It's kind of key to business. But to drill down into that a little further, looking at the sort of operating model side of it, then. So we talk about digital transformations of procurement. We talk about data-led and data-driven procurement functions. But looking at the impact of the operating model that's sort of supporting that and enabling that, what are we seeing on that front? What are kind of, I know obviously it's different, of course, between individual organizations, but there is largely a sort of a solid through line where procurement's procurement, and it operates effectively almost in a very similar way, regardless of industry. Give me an idea as to what's happening to the actual operating models that's defining the function, let alone the technology around it or the processes around it or the people around them.
Well, I have a pretty, to me, the op model changes fundamentally and drastically. And so I do a lot of digital work, and oftentimes people want to do digital first, and that's great. There's no problem with that. But the digital is maturing so fast, it becomes pretty obvious very quickly that all of a sudden, oh, my people, I need different people. Oh my God, our processes are way too complicated. Oh my God, our governance is totally out of whack compared to what it could be in this new way of working. And this is the beauty, this is the excitement, is we can reimagine that op model. And that's a lot of what I do, I advocate for, because a lot of the assumptions we go in with, and by the way, not all my colleagues agree with me, but on my next statement, but the idea that you have category managers, like, to me, technology and analytics eviscerate the need for category managers. Why not get good people that are leveraging the data and that the tools are driving a lot of this? And so all of a sudden, when you take category managers out of and eventually commodity managers, you change the fundamental makeup of this. And then if you really, and very few people agree with me on this, but I guarantee you I'm right, is that when you get technologies like smart contracts coming along, when those come to fruition, and it'll take a few years, I'm not saying they're here today, that changes the entire P2P construct. So the way we think about the procurement value chain has to change. And as we do that, it changes the op model in ways that we're only beginning to think about. And I'll just add one more piece, and there's a cultural element to it. When we put in all this rigid governance around, we got to make sure we don't overspend on this ream of paper, or we got to make sure somebody doesn't buy extra pencils. That's old thinking. That's post World War II thinking. That's we don't trust our employees. They're going to walk out with the tools at the end of the day. And we're in the 21st century in the digital age where it is about trust but verify, the old Reagan saying. But we really have to trust, like we're paying the employees that these knowledge worker jobs are very important. We should be trusting them and giving them a lot more autonomy than we do. Because what happens is procurement becomes this shadow budget control of, well, you can't buy that because you might be stealing from us. I mean, we have tools, fraud detection tools that can weed out the bad apples pretty quickly.
Yeah, and just the whole operating model discussion is an interesting one. Which came first, digital or the op model? And in the last 3 years, I've done 5 substantial pieces of digital work, and they've started in different places. That one was an outsourcing discussion, the other one was an op model discussion, and the other one was or two of them were digital implementations of big systems. All three of them ended up in the same place with a conversation which involved all three. Understanding what was the op model going to look like. So as Elouise said, what were the roles doing, what were the people doing, how many, where, which locations, the technology, how far, which technology, where, and then the insourcing, outsourcing, or outtasking, what was going to sit inside, what was going to sit outside, and all that at the same time in organizations where the procurement functions were ranging from 100 up to a couple of thousand, and so you've got to manage that transition over a period of time. But I don't think you can look at it through one point or lens without knowing that you're going to end up having to look at all those three things and more, to be quite honest.